So as more people are switching to year-round permanent outdoor lights on their house, and with the holidays coming up, I wanted to do a quick comparison between the two most popular options currently available by Govee, as well as a quick teaser with all we know about their new outdoor lights that will be launching here soon called the Prism. Now, Govee launched their original kit back in 2022, and it was an overnight sensation. But since that model is starting to get phased out, I'll be focusing on their permanent outdoor lights 2, which is their budget option, and their Pro kit that's currently their high-end version. So the Outdoor Lights 2 comes in 50, 100, or 150 foot lengths, while the Pro kit's available in 100, 150, or 200 feet. Now to keep this as easy to follow, the Outdoor Lights 2 will be the white lights and the Pro kit will be the black. In getting the strips unboxed and laid out, you can see that the puck distance between each light is different on both of these kits. The 2 actually has a little bit higher density, coming in at 15.5 inches between pucks, while the Pro has a 18.5 inch distance. Now, in my opinion, one of the biggest differences between these two offerings is the white light performance. The 2 has a 4000K dedicated dual white lights on either side of the RGB diode, while the Pro has 3 separate warm and 3 separate white LEDs with a range of 2700 to 6500K. And if you're wanting to use these year-round, with the majority of the time being set to a nice white color, this next part is extremely important. I turned the saturation and brightness down so you can better see what's going on. I have both lights set to a neutral white, which is around that 4000K temp. The Outdoor Lights 2 are able to get this neutral white with its dedicated diodes and doesn't need to use the middle RGB light at all, which is good. And for the Pro kit, since it has both warm and cool white LEDs, it's able to mix both of them to get an accurate neutral white, again without having to use the RGB LED in the middle. Now the issue becomes when we move the slider to a warm white. The Outdoor Lights 2 doesn't have a dedicated warm white LED, so it has to add some RGB color in order to get that warmer white, and this is where you begin to lose accuracy. Whereas the Pro is able to activate just the dedicated warm white LEDs, and it doesn't need to activate any RGB lighting. This is played out the same way for cool white. The 2 needs to add some RGB color to mimic a cool white, where the Pro can simply activate the cool white diodes for a much more accurate white. So if you plan on using these for a nice white light throughout the year, definitely go with the Pro kit. Now, one of the reasons why these are so popular is that people are tired of putting up and taking down Christmas lights every year and having to replace the cheap lights that go bad. So at least for me, if I'm investing in some permanent outdoor lights, in my mind, I want them to last at least 5 years. And Govee says these are built to last, but I wanted to put them through some tests to see how durable they are. After making sure all the connection points are screwed in tight, let's go outside and have some fun. So both lights have an IP67 waterproof rating, both control boxes have an IP65, and for the Pro, the power adapter is IP67, and on the Outdoor Lights 2, the power adapter is 65. I ended up spraying these for about 10 minutes straight, and after, everything was still working perfect, and I was able to use the controller's power button to turn on and off. Now IP67 means that they can be fully submerged, so I obviously had to test that out. I put both lights in a bin and filled it up with water so that they're completely covered. I left the lights on while they're in because I wanted to see if there'd be any abnormal flickering or failure. I left them in for about 45 minutes before I got bored, but even while the lights were completely submerged, the controller still worked and both lights showed zero signs of stress. So at least in the Great North where I live, it gets extremely cold during the winter, so the next test was to see how these performed when temperatures plummeted. I switched things up from water and filled each container with ice. Govee says both of these kits can survive from -4 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, but I know last winter it got down to -15 degrees Fahrenheit where I live, and my Pro kit did just fine on those colder days. I had them sitting in the ice for about an hour, and once I pulled them out, everything still worked on both kits. Next, I wanted to see how strong and protected the actual LEDs were within the puck casing. I first used pliers to hit the shell on each kit. Damage was very minimal on each, and I would give both the Pro and 2 passing grades. And finally, I gave them very direct blows on the top of each puck, and I don't know what type of reinforced plastic Govee's using, but not only did none of them break, there was hardly any scratches on either kit. Now, one of the last things you need to consider when deciding what kit to go with is whether or not you plan on doing cuts, splices, and jumps. If you do, go with the Pro because it's very DIY friendly. The Outdoor Lights 2 kit has the wires embedded in the outer sheath like you're seeing here, and the wires aren't insulated as well as the Pro kit. But I'm very happy to report that the wires in the 2 are significantly thicker than they used in the original kit, so even though Govee says these aren't cuttable, you certainly can do custom work with these and you should be totally fine. The Pro kit has both an outer black sleeve, and then each of the 3 wires underneath are again wrapped in a silicone layer. Here you have a pretty chunky red voltage and blue ground wire to work with, and even though it is pretty close, you can see that the Pro Kit's wires are a little bit thicker, which should make any custom work you do with them more reliable. And of course, another benefit of going with Govee is you have some great aftermarket options in terms of extension cables and splitters to choose from. These are compatible with both the Pro and the Outdoor 2 lights, and I'll leave links to these in the description. Now before moving on, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Aura. So this is me signing up for their free 14-day trial, and during this setup process, one of the many things they do is scan the internet for data brokers that have your personal information. These data brokers then make a fortune selling your information to spammers, scammers, and other entities that want to know more about you. Now, Aura was able to find 30 such instances of my personal information being in the hands of these companies. Then, with one click, Aura sends out a notice to have my information removed from their systems, which they are legally required to do when asked. Their all-in-one platform offers antivirus protection, credit monitoring, credit lock, financial transaction alerts, secure VPN, identity protection, parental controls, 24/7 US-based customer service, and much, much more. I'll leave a link in the description for you to start your own free 14-day trial, so please make sure to check them out. Thank you all so much, and now back to the video. Now, one of the biggest reasons why people don't install year-round lights on their house is because visible wires hanging everywhere looks pretty bad. And if you have an HOA, something that looked like this would never get the green light. And if you did want to pay a professional installation company for a clean end result, they're going to charge around $5,000 for a full house. Now, recently I had the pleasure of connecting with the #1 Govee installer in the entire country, Jacob Rowe. He very quickly saw that there was a huge demand for this type of lighting and created his own product called the Perm Track, so people like you and me can have a professional looking install at a fraction of the price of paying someone to do it. So Jacob and I spent the day installing the Govee Pro Kit using his track system, and at the end, the icing on the cake was paint matching everything to match the soffits, and when it was all said and done, the lights blended in so well that they became almost invisible during the day with no ugly wires in sight. I'll leave a link to his product in the description in case you're interested, as well as a link to the full video I did with him on this install, as we go over a bunch of great information on how easy it is to do splices and why splits with the Pro Kit. Now, I obviously already have the Pro Kit installed here in the track system, but I did want to give you guys a better comparison of the white light performance between both options, so I'm going to quickly install some of the outdoor lights too next to the Pros. And for those of you who don't want to spend the extra money on the track system or don't care about visible wires, the easiest way to install these are by using the sticky backing. But 1, make sure to wipe down the surface really good before sticking, and 2, don't wait to install these when it's super cold out. Preferably install them when it's 40 degrees Fahrenheit or warmer out, because the pucks will be able to get a good stick to the soffits compared to when it's cold outside. If you do wait too long and it's below freezing, I would recommend using a heat gun to warm up the surface before applying. So right here I have the Pro Kit set to warm white, which looks great because they have the dedicated warm white LEDs. This is what I normally have the light set to throughout the year during non-holidays. Switching to the outdoor lights too, you can see that it doesn't look quite as good. This is because it needs to use the RGB diode to supplement the neutral white to mimic a warm white, and it's just not as accurate as the Pros. Again, here's the Pros, and then here's the outdoor lights too. For the cool white, the Pros were again the winner, although it wasn't as big of a difference as the warm white. But again, here you can see the difference in brightness between the two. And for neutral, they are pretty similar, but I'd give the nod to the Pros as I think they look a little bit more what I would expect a neutral white to look like. Now for color performance, this is again where you have to pay close attention. Other than the Pros getting what I think is slightly brighter than the outdoor lights too, what I was most surprised at was how the same effect on each kit looked drastically different from a smooth animation perspective. For example, let's use the spring shower effect, which is playing on the outdoor lights 2 kit. And it's not that this looks bad, it's just that the colors are transitioning pretty fast. Now let's switch over to the Pro Kit and you can see how different it is. The colors here are changing and fading at a much higher frame rate, and at least in my opinion, I think this looks a lot better. Here's another example where we have the forest animation playing on the outdoor lights too. And then the same animation playing on the Pro Kit. And then I'll do one last example of a Christmas theme on the 2. And then that same animation on the Pros. Now I've done a few videos on the best app features that Govee has, and at the top of that list is their Scenic Dream View, which is what I was just using in that last comparison. With one tap I can change everything to a theme, including any other Govee products I have installed, like their new up-down wall lights that just launched. So when Christmas time rolls around, I can just hit one button and I'm all set. But if you're more into the neon cyberpunk type vibes, I'd recommend checking out the city night scene as the colors look absolutely incredible. They also have AI functionality where I can tell it what I'm looking for and it'll again change everything to fit that theme. So to recap, if you're wanting the best white light performance, if you plan on doing any type of cuts or splices, if you want options all the way up to 200 feet, and if you want things to be as bright as possible, go with the pros. However, if you want to save some money, you don't plan on doing any cuts, if your primary use case is colors around the holidays, and you don't mind the choppier animations, then you can't go wrong with the outdoor lights too. Now, Govee is about to launch a new kit called the Outdoor Permanent Lights Prism, and what's unique about this is that each puck will have 3 separate, individually addressable LEDs. We'll have to wait to see, but my guess is that this will be able to do some pretty crazy animations. The question for me though is, will it be too much for the average consumer? These lights will also include their patented lumen blend tech, which means the colors will be more accurate, especially in low brightness situations. And I put together a comparison spreadsheet between the 3 kits to better see what some of the differences are going to be. I most certainly will get my hands on these soon, and I'll let you know what I think, but I'm curious on what your initial impressions are of this, so let me know in the comments. Well, that about does it for this one. I hope you enjoyed the video, and all links will be in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a blessed day.